Welcome to another edition of the show with no name. This one for the end of March of 2012. What are we, the 30th? 30th,
yeah.
So when's the first?
It's Sunday, it's April Fool's Day.
Oh, wow. It's also Palm Sunday, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Well, nobody's going to pull jokes on Palm Sunday this year, so forget April Fool's Day. We'll do it again next year. All right. I'm Bob Going with Gavin Murdoch. We're taping this a little earlier than we usually do, so Jim might not have gotten the word. So we imagine he'll be wandering in the middle of the program, thinking he's early. I see you've got the recorder laid out on the paper on the table here. There was something you wanted to draw attention to?
Well, our historian, who usually writes about things gone by, had a article in yesterday's paper about things that will be.
The future.
The future. Futures of things past.
Now, why did he choose the year 2135?
That will be the anniversary of the founding of the city of Amsterdam. It was he did an article.
That'll be like the what? 250
anniversary.
Good morning.
And he looked at things as they've been and juxtaposed them into what they shall be.
Yeah, so I think the what he's really doing is talking more about the present and the past than he is the future, don't you think? It's a little satirical.
I think, and I think one of his points is that the more the things change, the more
they stay the same. Yes.
And the future reflects what happened in history, and he does an excellent job of covering most of the topics that have been brought up in the city and the county and the state and the nation and the past year, and just projects them, changing the names to protect the innocent or to hide the names of the guilty ones. And if somebody just looked at it, I would suggest you go back and read it, because it's
back in 2004, I was in my first year as Corporation Counsel, and we were celebrating the bicentennial of Amsterdam as Amsterdam, which is kind of an imaginary date of 1804, because neither was the village incorporated nor the town incorporated, but they decided to call basically the crossroads that became the city of Amsterdam, they decided to call that Amsterdam instead of Wettersburg, supposedly in 1804. And there's no clear record of when this great meeting took place. There's some kind of imaginary projections of what might have been said at the meeting.
Kind of like the 4th of July.
It was kind of like this, actually, where they were sitting around the table projecting the great and glorious future. But what's interesting is the centennial was celebrated in 1910. Mm-hmm. But the sesquicentennial was celebrated in 1954.
Close enough.
Yeah.
Close enough for government work.
So we decided, well, look, we're going to base this on really the quintessential Amsterdam moment of our youth, which was the bicentennial or the sesquicentennial parade of July 5, 1954. I was just three. I just turned 3.
Were you in Amsterdam yet?
No, but my grandmother lived here, and we were at the parade. We were definitely at the parade. My brother and I were in identical, believe it or not, red, white, and blue kind of suits, white shorts with the red, white, and blue shirts, and standing in the middle of Church Street between Holzheimer's and the Turner's Candy Manor, which took the place of the White Tower somewhere in between there. And it was, the parade itself, the whole thing, you've seen the films and the pictures, of course. I don't know if you remember the parade itself, but it was the last dying burst of the city of Amsterdam, because shortly thereafter, Bigelow Sanford closed, and that began the long downhill spiral. But at the time, the town was booming in the early Eisenhower years, the post-war years, and there were so many rival floats from the different factories and the different
Brothers of the Brush and Sisters of Swish.
The different service organizations and fraternal organizations. It was an incredible number, and the parade went on and on. It was probably the biggest parade the city ever had.
And I remember they came by where we lived, because just past our home, they held the kangaroo court at the end of the parade, where they adjudicated a number of people having committed crimes against the city of Amsterdam, and they were duly dunked into the barrel up there.
Wow!
So, that was part of the Brothers of the Brush who were involved in that. But it was all the people who were prominent in the community were participants.
There you go.
Every group, club, neighborhood, and maybe every bar was represented in that parade.
Absolutely, yeah. And there were a lot of bars in those days, as you know. The Great Amsterdam Challenge. Those are the people used to come from all over the Capital District, probably all over the state and the world, to take the Amsterdam Challenge. And that involved starting either in the east or west end of the city. I guess it didn't really matter. And you had to have one drink in every bar along Main Street.
And that was
not too many people made it to the end of the city.
No, and nobody made it up on the hills where the extra bars were.
Right. I mean, we're only talking about the Main Street places you can buy a drink. And now you couldn't even get a buzz if you do that today.
No, I think you're right. But that's sort of the tone it takes here. But he does address some serious issues in the community and reflects upon how they're going to draw out in the future. And they mention the Buddhist group in this article, and I guess it's a little bit ironic that on the radio this morning it indicated that the Buddhists are suing the city of Amsterdam, the assessor of Amsterdam, the Greater Amsterdam School District, because there's two properties that were not assessed as religious organization properties, and therefore they're going to be required to pay tax on them, and they're not going to do it. They're taking them to court.
Well, first of all, they're not a religious organization. Their properties have to be used. I mean, they are not for profit. They may fall under the category where they may be tax exempt on some things. But the rule is you have to be using the property for the purposes of the not-for-profit charter. For example, let's say you're. We'll say St. Casimir's Church. Let's say you're St. Casimir's Church.
Okay.
I'm using that as an example because St. Casimir's is closed, and so it doesn't matter. If St. Casimir's Church would be exempt because it's being used for that purposes in the rectory, and if they had a convent, whatever, okay. But they can't. If they were to buy and run Scaffidi's restaurant down the street, that would still be taxable because it's being used as a for-profit organization, even though the profits may be going into the church. It's not the same thing. So I don't know what properties they're talking about, but they may very well be. I'm assuming that they went through grievance day and all that.
There's a property they mentioned on Liberty Street and one on Kimball.
Well, the Liberty Street property is the old Lithuanian club, and it's not at all clear what they're using that for, or the Kimball Street property. Well, I'm surprised, considering all the properties they've bought, that those are the only two that are an issue.
Well, they might have bought those two properties based on what they thought they were going to be used for, and figured that's what it should be, and they're going to not pay tax on it as opposed to the rental property.
Yeah, that's why we have these things. Master, what's his name?
Okay, yeah, it's here. I've got pens, I've got wood.
Anyway, I got into the sesquicentennial story to get to the bicentennial story of 2004, and that is that we dug up the time capsule that had been buried in 1954 in the front of City Hall, and unfortunately it had collapsed over the years with the heaving of the earth, and virtually everything was destroyed.
Kind of like the city of Amsterdam in general.
No, it's not fair.
Okay.
It's negative.
Negative?
So we buried a new time capsule.
Made out of something different?
Well, not only made out of something different, everything that went into it went into a shrink wrapper first. We got one of those things where they sell on late night TV to preserve your food.
Yeah.
So everything that went in was separately sealed. We put in a DVD of the 1954 parade that had been converted from somebody's home movies, and a couple of contemporary DVDs, the recent Emmanuel inauguration ceremonies and such, and a lot of artifacts and things. It's a good time capsule, and actually it was sealed in a baby coffin. Actually, is what it was.
Did you put in a DVD player in case there's no DVD player?
And I said, as corporation counsel, I said, Mayor, I said, in 50 years they may not have a means of playing this the way the technology is going. We barely were able to find a Super 8 projector to convert that technology to DVD. So he says, yeah, you're right. So he went up and with his own money bought one at Walmart or something, and we sealed that and put it in. So
good idea.
Good plan. Certain things like RCA plugs will probably remain somewhat universal into the future, or they'll be able to convert them anyway. So that's due to be dug up in 50 years, and I left a letter inside.
You did?
Yeah. Yeah.
The letter A?
No. It was I said it's probably unlikely I'll be around when this is over. I'd be 103 if something like that.
Got a shot.
I got a shot. I got a shot of being there when it's open. But hopefully my kids will be around. So I wrote them a letter.
Oh, you wrote to your kids?
Yeah.
Oh.
And kind of projecting, wondering what the future will be like, that sort of thing. Actually, I forget what I wrote. We better dig it up and find out. I might be embarrassed. They'll say, who the heck was this?
These ones? Okay. They're both from New York, but just these are the
Yeah. How do we get on? Oh, we got on that because of him. Mm-hmm. So, I hear there's a school board election coming up. You used to be superintendent of schools up in Wells School District, and you were principal of Amsterdam High School at one time.
Teacher at Amsterdam High School.
Teacher at Amsterdam High School. And you taught Indians.
I taught on Indian reservation. I taught a course on Indian history at the high school. I live in the city.
Yeah?
I'm a taxpayer.
Well, then you ought to run.
I think I'm gonna.
All right, you heard it here, folks. You heard it here first. I still can't say it.
You heard it here first.
Okay, Gavin Murdoch. A man for all seasons, a genuine Renaissance man, has been to the Soviet Union.
Yes, when it was the Soviet Union.
When it was the Soviet Union. In fact, he voted to overthrow the Soviet Union while he was there.
Yes, we did.
So, Gavin, what's your platform? What kind of things you're going to look at?
I truly think they have to absolutely look at doing things different as a board, as a district, and as an educational institution. There's a lot of technology out there. A lot of school districts are using distance learning, one, to offer courses that a district cannot afford to offer or have the capability of offering because of staffing. I think you have to look very carefully at, upon retirements, whether or not that retiree position is something that is necessary. I'm not going to say mandated, we're going to say necessary in order to carry out the charge of educating the students in the community. There are ways that you can consolidate some of the services that are offered in the district I think we need to look at, particularly at the administrative level,
The white or the red?
as far as who is staffed in administration,
This is extra.
whether or not we can work with other districts to provide co-services so that our payments are not redundant. We don't need to be paying
This is
two people in two different places do the job that one of them could do from where they are.
But it's really hot.
With the technology that's available, you don't have to be on site to do a lot of things that we presently do on site.
I know.
That's for sure. Yeah.
I mean, every other industry is doing it, and I think we have to seriously look at doing it.
Problem is, every other industry has an incentive to do it, and school boards don't because they just keep raising the taxes.
Well, you know, in the state, we've created a situation whereby there's always been somebody there available to bail you out. You can I won't say you can fulfill your wish list, but they've been able to create things that are really, really nice, but not really, really necessary because the money has been there. And now all districts are looking at how they're going to be able to do more with less. There's contracts out there that are being negotiated now within the district. They have to seriously look at how those contracts are negotiated. I think the people who are involved in the various bargaining units have to become part of the solution and look at how compensation is provided. Nobody who lives in the confines of the United States are entitled to anything more than life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. We are not guaranteed nor entitled to a certain level of compensation. We are not entitled to receive benefits from a government service due to the lack of our own initiative. And I think all the bargaining unions have to seriously look at how we're going to do business from here on in. We probably can't undo things that have been done, but we can certainly do what needs to be done in the future. And it's true across the spectrum and all levels of government.
Now, you've been an observer of the school board over the last few years, and a critic, I might add, because you've certainly not hesitated to express your views on this show. What do you need to do to kickstart the Board of Education? First of all, there's 2 seats up this year,
yes, there are.
And there's a total of what, 7 on the board now?
Yes.
Okay. So even if you were to clone yourself, you don't necessarily come in with a majority your first year, or at least you don't make a sufficient change to to change the dynamic unless you do something else. So how do you convince some of these other board members to go along?
Well, I won't say you're going to be a crying voice in the wilderness, but you have to have a voice while you're there. I think that we never are too old to learn, and I think people who are in these positions have to become educated to part of what their responsibility is. I can say after being associated with this district for 27 plus years in the district that many people run for the board because of a particular item. They want to see something for their child. There's something they have a particular interest in. I won't say they have an axe to grind, but I think lots of times they come in as a one-point person. And I think that needs to be eliminated. We need to look at the big picture. We unfortunately often try to compare ourselves to other districts.
Yeah.
Well, look at what Niski has, or look at what Shen has. And while in theory that's not a bad idea because they have many, many programs, but we are not those communities. We have a different clientele in our community that we have to educate. And we have a different clientele from whence we receive our funding. And we do not have an unlimited budget. We do not have an unlimited tax base in this community. And those 2 things have to be balanced.
We have a high level of poverty here. and most poverty is grounded in people of the age group that we're educating. I mean, if you want to, who the poor people are, it's generally in the age group that we're talking about here, majority of them, and the poverty of the area also reflects in the ability to pay taxes here. So we have the problems of educating people from an impoverished background, and the problem of paying for it. It's not easy.
No, it is not. And you really have to examine every aspect of the budget. Too often what happens is you start with last year's budget as a base and build from there.
Right.
And every time we receive an influx of additional federal or state monies, it just gets thrown into to increase the amount of money we want to spend, as opposed to looking at ways not to continually tap the same sources, which are the taxpayers and the property owners in the city. You know, there's on the radio, and I didn't catch the whole amount, but it's $2+ million we just got additional because of the governor's budget. And it's under general aid, which means the district can use that money as it sees fit. Now they can simply say, okay, well that's $2 million we don't have to cut from the budget, or that's $2 million we have now available to apply towards the taxes that the property owners in the city of Amsterdam are faced with.
I mean, how much is already built in with the previous contract awards for personnel cost increases?
You're looking around 75% when you look at those types of expenses. But based upon what happened last year, when there was the greatest overall mandate to act in a certain manner, and have that mandate not be honored,
right.
I think one was amoral.
Well, first of all, you're talking about the public overwhelmingly turning down the budget, and then they
That's
just
right.
adopted it anyway.
Right. Simply because they could.
Right.
And simply doing something because you could doesn't make it right. And I think to make that right, the board truly needs to apply that additional monies to the amount of money they were going to take from the taxpayers, because that was the wrong thing to do. You know, there was absolutely no attempt made to go back and prune anything.
Right.
There was a concerted effort not to work with the Teacher Association to cut monies that the teachers were able to put on the table from a variety of sources to reduce the tax and the budget for last year. That was not done. I understand why. I won't say I understand. I know the reason for it. The superintendent was not looking to include in a certain manner the evaluation instrument that was being created for teacher evaluation, and had to take input from the teachers on it. That's certainly a tactic of management in many places. But when it comes down to dollars and cents, you're talking $1 million+. It makes a whole lot of sense to go along with it, and it was not done. And I thought that was wrong. It truly was.
It should have at least reached the serious negotiation stage, which it never did.
No, it was dismissed out of hand. I know there's several contracts being negotiated now. I know the teacher's contract is up at the end of this year. There's never been open discussion about it, which I understand at this point why they don't do that. But I would truly hope that they're looking to rein in some of the costs of the contracts, not only for now but for the future, because as you know, the pensions are a killer to municipalities right now. They're indebted for the future for billions of dollars in this state, and that amount is ever increasing in school budgets compared to what they're actually spending on the cost of education currently for the programs that they have. This is rising, and I think it was a good thing that the governor created Tier 6. I think that was a step in the right direction. You're not going to see immediate results from it, but you have to recognize that down the road, by having that, you're not going to be paying X amount then because you've reduced it. But for the present being, they really need to take a look at what we provide. Do we have to ask a greater freight in some of the things that we provide gratis through the school district, and look at how we're going to do that in the future, because it's a killer, and it's something that really affects the community, because people. I don't believe Amsterdam has a bad reputation as a school district. We take a hit every now and then, but every big city school district does. But what we take a hit in is the property taxes. When people look at what you're getting for it, they say,
"What are we getting for this?
What are we getting?
We're paying Long Island prices and getting three of the 4 elementary schools flunking."
Well, and not to make excuses, but you're looking at a challenging clientele that we have.
Yeah, I understand.
And I would also suggest, and I felt this when I was in the school district as a teacher and as an administrator, that if 35 years ago these same sort of tests were administered, you would have gotten the same results.
But you would have known about it earlier.
You would have known about it earlier. You know, you look back on, you know, some of the people who've gone through the district and say, geez, would they been able to pass that Regents exam in algebra? Well, they didn't have to take it.
Let's get into some of the minutiae of the school district. Now we have 4 elementary schools now,
yes.
Right? Are they all in these semi-charter academy modes now, or
all of them are what we call magnet schools? They all have a theme that their curriculum works around in there.
And they're all different.
Each one is different, and you can, as a parent, send your child to a school of your choice, provided that there is room there. And for the most part, everybody's at the school they want to be at.
Well, I bring that up because my daughter was taking a look at the public schools yesterday, and I guess they were signing up and such, and they were going over McNulty, and the lady ahead of them had just been told that her 2 kids were going to end up in 2 different schools. And they were telling them that there's no guarantee that even if they get into school this year, that they won't be transferred to another school the next year.
Well, I think part of that is, you know, based upon the number of students in a particular grade and the size of classes that they're running into. They do try to keep a cap on the size of the elementary classes. If you choose to go to a particular school in the district, we have to be bused. We have to bus you. My son lived down in the McNulty district, but he went to Curry because he wanted to be part of the Math and Science Academy up there, as opposed to going to McNulty, which is the International Studies program up there. So there are some advantages and disadvantages, and sometimes people get caught in the switch. You know.
Do you know off the top of the head which each of the academies represent?
Well, let's see. Micro Society is Barclay, and Techler is language up there. And each one, you know, they tried to develop their curriculum around. They did a lot of things at Curry last year when there on technology, computers, and tried to integrate that through the entire curriculum. And certain kids have certain interests, and if they have an interest in where they're going to school, hopefully that will increase their commitment to what's going on. I don't know if our move to the magnet school setup has changed the results a whole lot. I think it goes up and down from year to year, depending upon the group that's taking particular tests.
None of them have gone completely through the system yet, though, right? I don't think it's been around that long.
Yeah, pretty close. It's been at least five years, maybe going on 6. But all the schools didn't start out as magnets at the same time.
Right.
You know, and one of the big pushes when they closed Bacon was the magnet school system they were creating, so that
nobody would notice.
Nobody would notice. You know. There are certainly parents who choose a school in the district based upon who their child will be going to school with, whether it be their neighborhood friends or acquaintances they have. That's how my son picked McCurry. He knew one of the kids up there and his buddies, and he said, I want to go there. So there you go, good educational choice made upon it. And he thrived at Curry. He loved it.
Are we,
great teachers and
is the system adding significantly to our transportation costs?
significant transportation went up in it, yes. But that by closing the school, transportation is going to be less of a bill than to keep that other school open. In the long run, over time, yeah, you're going to spend more for transportation than you would if the kids could walk to school. Because before they had the magnet school, McNulty had one bus. That's all they had to have, bus. They had one bus that kids they had to bring in because they were in the perimeter of their catchment area.
Right.
Now, you know, every school's got buses coming in and out. Is it better? I don't know. It's better. I don't know if the results are appreciably better. One of the things that the state wants school districts to look at is what they call value added. Has the child from this year who's gone next year done better than the previous year? Not groups, not did this second grade do better than last year's second grade, because you're talking,
they're not telling anything.
You're talking peas and carrots.
Right.
Okay, you want to take all the peas and see how the peas survive all the way through.
Right.
To get an idea the quality of instruction and the amount of understanding the kids are acquiring. And I think that's a step in the right direction.
One of the things that is kind of startling and seems counterintuitive, we started in with the Head Start program, the whole pre-K movement. Really kind of back when we were in high school, I guess.
That's when
it's been that long. It's been 40-some years. And the whole idea was to get kids into an educational environment earlier and hopefully give them the ability to compete with the other kids as they go. And yet, study after study after study has shown that by third grade they're all back where they would have been anyway.
It's flat. And I think that comes about because it's that point in time that often the home environments excuse themselves from the educational process. There gets to be a point in time when the parents aren't sitting down and looking at everything the kid is doing and encouraging the kid to do all those things. It's, well, they're doing well now, and it just kind of gets pushed to the back burner. And education is not a 6.5 hour a day process. It's a 24-hour a day process that more than just the instructor from the classroom has to be involved in. And the district has, over the years, made extensive outreach into the community and to the various community groups to try to get them to see that this is the ticket. You get that graduation ticket, the kid's going to be able to go someplace. And it really, we got to a point where we haven't got over that hurdle. The same thing is true in many city schools. You get to a certain point, you just can't make that additional step where you're going to open the floodgate and it's going to be wonderful. It hasn't happened, and that's a battle our educators face in the community and the school board faces. How are we going to change that? Because you're right, about 3rd or 4th grade things flatten out. Things really flatten out in 8th grade. Actually becomes to digress a little bit in 8th grade. And, you know, there's a whole lot of things you can say contribute to it. It's the socio-economic background of the family, you know, the generational poverty of families, and the other things that we do in the community that takes time away from the true task of educating the kids. I think sports is absolutely fabulous, but the amount of time kids put in sport outweighs the amount of time they put in school, outside of school.
It does, however, teach them a discipline that they might not otherwise have.
For a period of time, yeah. Until that season's over. But we don't get the involvement of the parents once they get around 3rd, 4th, 5th grade. It just wanes, and that's where you see the kids just flatten out. And that's at the point in time when the amount of knowledge the kid is being required to acquire and utilize begins really to grow.
That's right.
You know, and then when you get junior high school, it gets a greater amount is piled on. We get the high school a greater amount. And
by 8th grade, you should have learned enough to be able to go into the world. And the rest is important. I'm not saying it isn't, but the basics for surviving in the world are basically in your hands by 8th grade.
The work ethic you need to have should be soundly grounded by that point in time, and your aspirations of being more than what you are come in, and that's important, because you need to be more you are in the future. Otherwise, you'll be a whole lot less than you are right now, and that's not the situation we want to be in. I think the board needs to look at those things. I think the board needs to look at getting the community itself more involved in what they do. Yeah, I hate that word transparent, because that sounds phony, but they need to open up, and they need to start looking at other places. A couple weeks ago, there was a great plan laid out by Steve Tomlinson, the superintendent of schools in Broadwell and Perth, because they're in real tight financial shapes, and his charge. And
they've been clobbered in their tax increases the last couple of years, worse than us.
And according to the radio this morning, they're only going to get an additional $100,000. Okay, which is,
how big is that district compared to others?
How big? They're a Class B school, so if we're graduating 250 kids a year from the high school, they're graduating probably about $1.25, $1.50, something like that. So they are smaller. They've got a huge catchment area that they draw from up there. They have some high-end property up on the lake, which
they exploit,
which gets exploited.
Yeah.
I don't know who's exploiting it, but his challenge to the entire district, the community as a whole, and the educational community, is to look at absolutely finding different ways to deliver the services we're delivering now in a way that is affordable to the people in that community. I've always had a problem with the fact that you live 5 feet different from somebody else. You pay X amount more in taxes, and yet you're offered X amount less in services, which is unfortunately the system the state has created for towns, cities, communities, and school districts. You live here, you go to Galway. You live here, you go to Amsterdam. You pay $1,000, $1,500 in taxes in Galway, and you're paying $2,500, $3,000 in Amsterdam, just by the nature of
being across the street.
Being across the street.
And it has nothing to do with any other municipal services. You're all expected to get the same education.
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
Yes, you are. And they're still trying to define what that education is supposed to be. And the state is always grappling with it, and then the schools get all the runoff from it. And it's up to you to make do with what you can. So,
no easy answers to any of this stuff, obviously.
No, there's nothing that's going to flip the switch overnight.
And a lot of it is the basically medieval notion of relying on property taxes to support the school system. If anything, I mean, if any aspect of our taxation system is out of whack, it's that one. The education should be the same across the state, and it should not be reliant on how valuable a particular piece of land is for, which is often for crazy historical purposes or
no purpose at all.
Or no purpose at all. Yeah.
It does make it very, very difficult.
And as I said earlier, I mean, the poorer you are, the poorer your students, the more you're required to do, and the less you have to do it with.
And because of that, you end up trying to massage your standards you have.
Then you raise the taxes and you make the place even poorer. Which people don't realize who are doing that.
The law of unintended consequences. We didn't intend this to happen. This is what happens. So we'll see. So we're going to be circulating our petitions beginning next week, and hopefully we'll be able to get at least 100 people think I should run for the board, and if that happens, then we will.
So you can't circulate the petitions yet? Is that what you're saying?
No, I can't because they're home. So yeah, I've got them.
You are able to circulate them at this point. I just haven't. And when are they due in?
April 25th, I think.
Well, be sure to
Yes, we shall.
Be sure to bring one in my presence, and be happy to sign one for you. I might even, or just give me a blank one, and I'll get a bunch of people to sign it.
So we'll see how this election goes. I think this is going to be a real telling.
Well, if the people aren't ready to revolt this year, then there's no hope. After what happened last year, because that was just outrageous. The school board members who voted for that last year should have all resigned and held their heads in shame. That's the way I look at it.
Not only should they not have voted for it, they should have forced the hand to do that.
Right.
They are the employing agency in the school district, and those people who are their employees should take heed when they speak. And I think it should have been said, this is, even a token of understanding of what had taken place would have been welcome, as opposed to ignoring everything and saying, well, I can do this, so I'm going to do it. And just because you can do something doesn't make it right. And that wasn't right. That wasn't right.
And how many? There were like 250 people showed up in Mount Carmel that night, right? Mm-hmm. Something like that.
And that's a goodly sum, and hopefully those people will remember and come out and raise their voices. Again, as far as what needs to be done and actually doing it.
Now, before this year's election, which is early May, right?
Yeah.
Before this year's election, you're going to see a new school district budget. Has that been proposed yet?
There was something the other day in the paper that they're working on. It didn't give any facts and figures on it, so I don't know what the proposed budget is. But most districts were waiting to see what was going to come out of the governor's budget for the district. And
remember, you're on camera, so. Okay.
So that, I think, is important that, again, as we mentioned earlier, that money should be used in the appropriate manner, not in the way it's been used in the past. Because once you start building something, they never cut it back.
You know what? I would have felt a lot better about the whole process if that announcement had been made after the proposed budget was on the table, so that you can see everything, transparently, in the word you don't like. But really, now they'll just work it in. It'll just disappear. It'll disappear real fast.
I hope not. I hope not, because that's not the way to do things. And I think the governor has been pretty clear in his stance on budgets. He came into a real tough situation, and he's made some decent progress. I think a lot more progress than people thought he was going to be able to make.
One of the a lot of interesting things in being in the I Grew Up in Amsterdam, New York site on Facebook. But there are some things that seem to us as recent history that are really startling when you look at them in retrospect. One the other day was they posted a picture of the Wilbur Lynch class of 1967, and it was just the boys, and it filled one side of the gymnasium. Okay.
Yeah.
And that class had, I don't know, over 500 graduates, I'm pretty sure, something in that area. And I think it grew for a couple of years after that, even.
Yeah, I think our year.
And I think the most that ever went to Scully
we had the largest
was
70. We were
it may have been the year after I graduated that the total number was the highest. But including my year, it was a lot. But I mean, we graduated 118. I think my sister's class was the largest, and I think they must have like 140, I think, or close to it.
We had a buck 29 or buck 31.
Yeah, and I think her class was just a little bit bigger than yours.
So we had 500 kids there.
Yeah, but just compare that. Now we're graduating like 250 from the high school now.
225 to 250.
Yeah, and we're talking about half that number went to Bishop Scully, and they weren't half of what was graduating from the high school at the time. So we're talking classes that were 2 and 3 times as large as they are now.
Yeah.
When you take the whole community into account, 3 times, or 2-3 times anyway.
Is he graduating?
Graduating from high school in Amsterdam. So obviously there's a declining school enrollment. It's not like all of a sudden we have a lot more dropouts than we used to have. It's clearly a declining school enrollment in the city, and that's because of obviously a declining number of kids. We closed Bacon some years ago. Now, are we going to come to the point where we have to close another elementary school?
I could have did a better job.
I know when they closed Bacon, they did a real careful study of the buildings and populations and what they could hold. And I think they're pretty close to, I can't imagine one of the elementary schools being able to pick up another 100 kids apiece. That would be busting at the seams. So I think we're pretty much where it's going to be. I know they do
for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, they do a count of future trends for student enrollment. I think we're going to be pretty flat here for a good number of years, unless something drastic happens and you get a large influx of families coming in because of AMD. I mean,
whatever.
Yeah, we can have that happen. No, but we'll see it down the line.
But the trend has been downward pretty steadily.
Yeah, it hasn't been up. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And the number of, again, the number of mandates, the number of requirements that are necessary is certainly different than what it was. You still, the amount that an elementary teacher has to incorporate in the course of a day for their students is way more than you and I ever had. One, because a lot of stuff we didn't offer, and a lot of things we didn't have to offer. I mean, once in a while we get to set our crayons out and get to draw something. I remember going to gym class once when we had to take the president's physical fitness test. That was the only time I ever saw anything related to gym. You play tag or touch football.
Well, that's true. We had no physical education program at the old St. Mary's. There was really no facility to do it. You couldn't have people playing in the gym during the school days because the four classrooms surrounding it would.
Yeah. So we didn't have that.
And it wasn't really a gym. I mean, it was laid out as a gym, but it was never really used as one.
And it wasn't much of an auditorium either.
It wasn't much of an auditorium either. It was kind of cute though.
It was dark.
Yeah.
That's what they called it, dungeon hall. I know it was Dugan.
Dugan
I always thought it said dungeon up there when I was a little kid. But it was. But that's
true. I remember. We had to take the Kennedy test or something.
Yep.
And I think they took us out into the parking lot
across the street.
Across the street, right?
Yeah, we used to have the festival over there.
Right.
Dutch made you, run these.
Let's say, 10-yard, 100-yard dash or something like that.
Yeah.
And it took our times down and
how many push-ups?
weighed us in or whatever.
Yeah. That was it. The only time.
That was the entire physical fitness program.
Yeah, and the only other time we did a couple of plays in the auditorium, and the only other time I remember in the auditorium was when we signed up for our classes for Bishop Scully. They had the principal.
We would have.
That little office in there. We went in there, we sat down. This is what we take you. Okay, that was it.
That's right. There was a little office in the back.
Yeah.
Here comes Jim the Kosher. Okay.
Hey.
All right. Good. Very good.
All right.
We started early, Jim, so we saved the place for you, though.
How about that?
Well, I did send you an email. If you don't read your email, then you miss it.
What did you start? What time did you start?
Well, it doesn't matter. Just come on over. We're in the middle of it. I have to leave early today. So. Okay. All right, just make sure I'm still on the camera. All right. Okay. I'll get more over this way, and then we'll have a lot of room for Jim.
I didn't my email this morning.
So. Anyway, Gavin just announced he's running for the school board.
Very good. Very good.
All right.
We'll see.
You gonna vote for him?
You better believe it.
All right then. All right.
I voted for Babe.
I voted for Babe. Not good that did us.
Hope that trend doesn't continue.
So I don't know. So maybe it's time to switch subjects now that Jim's here.
Okay. Well, what was the subject before I got here?
Oh no, we were just talking about the schools.
Oh.
Yeah. So we're done.
I see in the county, there's 2 no votes, Barone and Mr. Chayera, regarding the budget up there because they weren't provided the information prior to the voting, and they felt they'd probably want to look at it before they voted.
What was that about?
that was for the county.
No, where
Something-
was the information?
Oh, it was on the radio this morning.
Oh.
On that other station. They mentioned it.
On the other station?
The other
All right.
station.
We got Jim.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Hey, this is not a bad setup. I think maybe we'll
Yeah.
keep this. Yeah.
The weekend?
Until we get a fourth guy on, then we're out of luck. What?
Looks like I'm bald on TV.
No, that's really the way you look. Yeah. Yeah. But don't keep going like this. You have to
That
keep your head
reflection
up.
makes it hard.
Actually, we don't see anything.
Okay. All right. I'm in.
And Cedar's been there has been an important Supreme Court session this past
Oh
week.
boy, you know, and I was. There was not a lot of great reporting about that. I didn't think because while it was going on, of course, they didn't do a live. So you know, I found a couple of people who were blogging while it was happening, kind of reporting on it. This one said this one said that. Couple of things. The Solicitor General of the United States was universally panned for his performance, but as a lot of people noted, he had an impossible, near impossible argument to make.
And he couldn't lie.
And well, he tried. I mean, tried very hard, but he couldn't do it effectively. And the really, I mean, we really have some wacko Supreme Court judges who have no view.
Constitutionality.
At all, and that's kind of frightening that they don't even see what the issue is. You know, the issue means nothing to them because the Constitution is what we say it is, and that is such a dangerous position to take. Paul Clement, who I've always been fond of as a lawyer, former Solicitor General of the United States. I think I guess he never got, there was talk he was going to be Attorney General at one point, but I don't think he ever made that even for a short period of time, because we were both looking for the job at the same time, that's why I remember. Paul Clement is a brilliant guy and very thoughtful, and boy, is he fast on his feet, because he was coming back with just some brilliant rejoinders to questions that were put to him. Yeah. So it looks to me, I mean, you can never predict these things, but it looks to me like not only is the mandate going to get thrown out, they're going to throw out the whole thing. The only question is what the vote is, and I think it's going to be 5-4.
And I think even in the bigger schemes, this is a battle of power for the government. What the government is permitted to do.
Right.
It's only just fact and health.
Where are the limits that Madison thought he put into the Constitution?
Absolutely.
And essentially the position the government is taking now is that there are no limits to what we can force you to do. And I think it was Breyer came right out and said it. Yeah, there are no limits. That's crazy to say there are limits. You know. Yeah. Yes, we can make you eat broccoli or buy broccoli. Yes, we can do that. Yes.
Everybody's got to buy a car.
Everybody's got to buy a Volt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Be just like East Germany. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but there was an escape from East Germany. At least you're over the wall. Here we're stuck.
Right. There's no place left to go, as Reagan said. Where will we go when America is gone? Yeah.
Well, you're getting there. Now you're
So the arguments were great. They showed this case for what it is. This is going to be a seminal case in deciding the limits of government. And I even think they're going to vote on that Medicaid, on the coercion. They've hinted for years that there is a limit to how far government can coerce the states to go along with them, and that this may in fact be the limit. And if they do that as well, it's going to be a monumental decision and an exceptionally important one. Now, both sides concede, I think, that the Congress is best suited to decide what stays and what goes. The liberals on the court are saying yes, so we shouldn't second guess what the Congress already did, and we should just let everything that's not the mandate stay in, and And the reason for that is they know that this Congress, if the whole thing gets thrown out, ain't going to put back in what just got taken out. So they're trying desperately, for political reasons, to save Obama's program. And that's dead wrong. The court should not even look at that issue. They should look at what Scalia said. You expect us to read 2,700 pages of this and decide what stays in and what's out? Isn't that the legislature's job? Should we have our law clerks be doing this? No. Send it all back to the Congress and let them figure it out.
Well, the law clerks are the ones that wrote it.
In the Congress, yeah, basically the same kind of people, right?
And I think there's something fundamentally wrong when you pass a piece of legislation that somebody with a high school diploma, at least one college degree, can't sit down, read, and understand.
Yeah.
There should be a clear language requirement in what takes place in Congress. And
when the congressmen have no idea what it is they're passing and admit they haven't read it,
that's the
well,
problem.
when you give it to them an hour before you're supposed to vote, but that's part of the process.
Yeah.
We don't
That's what
take
has
my
to be
word
changed.
for it. It's okay, Bob.
That's what has
It's
to
okay.
be changed. Is the congressmen have to know what's in the bill before they can pass it.
especially something that fundamentally changes the relationship between the people and their government, as this did. But boy, the arrogance of power. What? What do you mean? Remember Pelosi being even shocked that there was a question as to the where in the Constitution you have the authority to do that? What?
She didn't know what was in it.
Pass the bill and then we'll read it.
then
Well,
we'll read it.
unintended consequences certainly played out in that thing because the more that is
And don't forget. Remember when Scott Brown was elected to the Senate from Massachusetts, he provided the 41st vote to block it, so they never sent it back to the Senate, and then they just passed this resolution saying it's presumed passed. Holy mackerel! Wrong on a thousand different ways, and it's about time somebody said stop. And hopefully that'll be the beginning of the really big change that this country needs along those lines. Start rolling it back the other way. Boy. Anyway. So that was that.
That'll be interesting. They said by tonight they'll know what their vote is going to be. And
oh yeah, they're voting today actually. Yeah.
we won't know until June to find out.
We won't know till June.
Because they'll have between now and June they'll be writing.
My guess there will be
opinion.
about 5 different opinions submitted.
What's the
There'll be a
vote gonna
majority opinion, but then there'll be I agree in part, and concurring opinions where they agree with the result, but would also say this and that. So I'm guessing they're all maybe even more than that. They may all want something to say in this one.
I think they're going to. Yeah.
It's gonna be a close vote.
It's going to be a close vote, yeah, because that's the way
Gonna go down party lines. Yeah. Not that they belong to any parties, but they're certainly.
I would guess so. Yeah, I would think Yeah, the 5 Catholics will be on one side, and the and the 3.5 others will be on another. What a remarkable thing when you think about it. Actually, Sotomayor is at least nominally Catholic. I don't know whether she practices or not. For a country that is so soundly founded by Protestants.
Okay.
I don't think there's a Protestant on the Supreme Court, is there?
Say that. They're Catholic or Jewish.
All right, let me call him now.
I think Kagan is Jewish, I think, and certainly Breyer and Ginsburg are, and Sotomayor is nominally Catholic. And Thomas was an Episcopalian when they put him on, but he converted.
Wow.
That's something?
Yeah. For so long, the
it was all Yankee Protestants.
Yeah. Wow.
But my point
Who knew?
is he could only
Who knew?
Who knew?
speaking of religion, the New Hampshire and Vermont were the least religious states in the country. And I think, what did they say, Mississippi was the most? Was it Mississippi?
Yeah, probably. Now here's a, I don't know if you saw the Gazette yesterday, but apparently there's some study done by one of these dating services about, and they say what is important to you in a relationship.
Yeah.
A number of things, 1 to 10, blah 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 blah. And the city of Schenectady came second place in the nation as being sex being the least important part of the relationship.
Really?
So the headlines are, Schenectady not interested in sex or something like that.
What was the most important thing for Schenectady?
I think it shows them to be a whole lot less shallow in Schenectady than they are in other places. Frankly, Lubbock, Texas, I think was the last or something like that. But yeah, I mean, let's face it. A long-term relationship, you're going to want a whole lot more than that, or there are a lot more important things than that. So anyway, so Schenectady, which is a funny name. The comedians always liked it because it's got a K sound. Is going to be hitting the comic stands again. Yeah.
Take the pressure off Amsterdam for a while.
I saw. Have you seen this Jewish channel that's on Time Warner now? 360, channel 360.
No.
On Time Warner. It's been on for a few months now.
Really?
Yeah.
But very. I mean, it's what's going on in Israel today, and what's going on in the
I gotta wait
Brooklyn
until I fix it
Yeshiva.
out, but I'll go do that.
They're also running some of the old programs. If they involve Jewish people. Now, I never knew Dinah Shore was Jewish until she started running on the Jewish channel all night. Last night, we caught an episode, had to be from like 1958, 59, of the Dinah Shore Chevy Show. Not a very good kinescope.
1207.
But what a cast on this show. Dinah's special guests were Art Carney, Julie Andrews, and Cheetah Rivera. It was done with, I think, at most two cameras live. Every once in a while, and mostly it was just one camera, and then every once in a while they'd shoot over here so the second camera could go move somewhere else. And I could visualize it in my head what they're doing because it was just two cameras, and they're just moving from set to set along the same stage. But it was all done live. And really, as I say, one hell of a lot of talent on one stage at the same time. One of, I think it was one of our relatives, one of the young relatives, sent a picture of Cheetah Rivera performing the other day in New York. And I said, my God, Cheetah Rivera was huge in like 1960. And here she is still performing, 50-some years later.
All right.
360, huh?
Channel 360, yeah. And then I watched 2 episodes of the Jack Benny Show, which
Jack Benny was.
That show was just surreal in every aspect of it. It was wonderful, wonderful. One of them had Jimmy Stewart and his wife on it, and Jack Benny interrupting their movie. But it was wow, Jack Benny. He was on for 15 years on the TV, I guess.
Wow.
But he could do more saying nothing to get a laugh than anybody I ever knew. His timing was.
Well, they got that from vaudeville, live audience. You had to get it right.
That's right. You just had to work the audience, and sometimes a lot of times they couldn't hear you, so a look was all you needed.
And it's you say that, and it's funny. The comedians today, it's harder because Jack Benny could do 20 cities.
Right, do the same show over and over and over and over.
These guys, For the
That's
media,
right.
you got to every time you got to be different.
I'm not a huge fan of Stewart and Colbert, but I admire like heck the fact that they're able to come up with all this material night after night after night, because that has got to be brutal. I realize that politicians are always doing something funny, but boy, to be able to turn it into something. Carson too. I mean, how many monologues did he do over the years?
They probably got a room full of people.
Yeah.
Though, you know.
Working on it. But remember, the vaudeville guys did all their own stuff.
Right.
It was.
Well, they stole from each other, but still, yeah.
It's okay.
We were talking about the Jewish religion program, and Karl Strock's newspaper article for the last 2 days really raked them over the coals. Jerusalem, Palestine.
Well, Carl's kind of like an atheist, isn't he?
Yeah.
I have 3 pens. I have.
It's just
I have plain. I have.
whatever you say, he's going to argue with you.
Oh yeah.
Don't matter.
Exactly.
Yeah, he came to the Conservative Party conference last year when Mark Stein was speaking, and everybody's going, "Oh, geez, Karl Strock's here." He's got his bow tie.
Yeah.
And he gets up and he asks an incredibly stupid and insulting question to Stein, who is. Karl Strock's pretty sharp, but Stein is just. That was the end of Karl Strock. He asked no more questions.
Zoe and Dave.
Stein is amazing.
Sharp mind. You got to be able to take things and look at it from 6 different directions at the same time and come up with something there. It's tough. It's tough. Not many people have that skill.
He was telling me this story personally a few years ago in New Hampshire. How he
have cranberry. I have fruit punch.
back during the Salman Rushdie controversy.
Okay.
Yeah. When he wrote the what was it called? What was it?
Verses?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. The Satanic Verses. I guess Rushdie had
Cranberry, orange, or fruit punch.
written a letter to the editor of the newspaper in England that Stein was working for at the time, I guess the editor asked him to get a hold of Rushdie and confirm that this was him sending the letter. And he says, "And how am I supposed to do that? The guy's been in hiding for 5 years."
He did live under a dark cloud there for a while.
Yeah, I'm sure he still does, but what a crazy world. What a crazy world. I see. I made the papers this week. Probably this paper actually. Is this one?
Yesterday's.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm on this county charter commission. This will be my third one. My third county charter commission.
And
well, I think most of the issues are pretty laid out at this point. It's not like we have to reinvent the wheel. The question is,
the big question is
put it together and put it before the. Well, there's 2 big questions. One is having
the chairman,
the county executive, and what his powers will be, or her. And the second is whether we go to legislative districts. And I was thinking that's technically kind of a bigger problem because of the way our regular election districts are drawn to try to balance them out. I mean, there comes a point. I mean, you're going to be. You want them to be equal districts, obviously.
Yeah.
But that's not an easy thing to put together. And then I started thinking, it's probably a lot easier now that we have this electronic voting system, because you can say that these 12 blocks of this district can only vote are in this legislative district, and 12 blocks in the election district are in another legislative district, and all you have to do is hand them the right
ballot.
The right ballot. So maybe it's a lot more doable than it might otherwise have been. The technology caught up with us. I got to see how they do it in Schenectady, because they went to that transition decades ago, probably 40 years ago, because they now have county legislative districts that cross town lines. Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how they draw this. Just like they're having the battle now in the state trying to draw up the district lines, and how much gerrymandering goes on to make it weighted for us, not for them.
Right. So anyway, that's I've been honored again to serve on another. This will be my 5th charter commission. 3 counties and 2 cities.
So you'll be busy. We'll be missing you on Fridays now, probably.
Oh no, I'll be here. Okay.
Make sure the meetings aren't on Friday, right?
But the meetings will not be on. Yeah, well, we'll know if they start scheduling the meetings Friday from 10 to 12. Something's going on. I guess young Vincent Stark is on the.
Is he?
Your cousin. Yeah, your cousin Vincent. And it's funny because Vinny is about the age I was when I was on my first charter commission.
About 24, 25.
Yeah, and I was just well, he's out of law school, so yeah, he's probably 26, probably 20. No,
yeah, he could be.
Yeah,
22 out of college in 3 years.
26, yeah, 26, maybe even 27. Yeah, and I remember I was on just before I got married, so it had to have been 77, 78, somewhere in that time frame, and I think we put it on the ballot in 78. Yeah.
Well, time get some young blood in there and see if he has some fresh eyes on some of the same old pieces of paper.
You know, it's funny. I gotta say, I don't look at myself as much of a prophet, but I wrote a concurring opinion back then when we wanted to create. I voted to create the unelected county administrator, position. But I wrote a concurrence saying that I think there should only be a short-term solution because we need somebody right now. In the long term, we should have a county executive. And I laid out all the reasons why. And I predicted what would happen with the county if we stayed with the county administrator, how there would be, he would be beholden to shifting majorities of members of the Board of Supervisors to keep his job and all this stuff, and how ultimately you're just going to go through a string of county administrators as a result. And boy, that's exactly what happened. I mean, it was like I was Karnak. Unbelievable. Everything I said came out exactly the way, and I wrote that in like in 78, and supervisor from St. Johnsville. Stagliano pulled that out one day and showed it to me. He says, "You really knew what you were talking about." I have the second sight. Ask me what's going to happen to the East End Social Center. I'll tell you right now. All right, I have to go because I have to be up in Fonda in a few minutes. So we're going to cut it short this week. We'll be back again next Friday. I'm Bob Going with what?
That's Good Friday next Friday.
Good Friday next Friday. Well, we won't be there next Friday. We'll do the show another time or not. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we don't work on Good Friday. So anyway, Bob Going, Jim Nikosha, Gavin Murdoch, our candidate for the school board. Say vote for me.
Vote for me.
Okay.
You got my vote.
All right. I'm voting for Gavin.
I voted for Babe.
All right. We'll be back with more of the show with no name.